Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber give a pretty interesting story, which I'll flip in the screenshot of it right here. Yeah, I've got a subscriber who seems to have broken his wrist due to a combination of factors while he was on anabolics. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting and let's talk about this because there's some interesting things for people to learn from this because this isn't the first sort of case I've heard of things like this. And yeah, I did go check out his Instagram and I saw the x-rays. Dude is not playing. So, yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. All right, guys, so that's one of the things that people do need to think about. And there's going to be another thing here because it's not just always entirely drugs. There are other factors here. This could happen to people who are drug-free also. All right. What seems to have happened is he is fatigued that area as a result of doing a lot of wrist curls, so it seems to have put some extra stress in that area of his forearm, and then he was benching heavy and he snapped his forearm, snapped the bone there under a heavy bench press due to the strength he's gained. Now he's 43 and he's saying, well, my bones weren't brittle or anything, but people do need to remember as we get older, bone mineralization becomes a big issue, and weight training does help with that, but what we need to factor in is that there's a lot of factors going on. All right, first of all, he's on a pretty aggressive drug stack. In fact, the drug that he's on, Winstrol, I'm not going to lie, I was on Winstrol also when I had my only major training injury. God, how many years ago has that been now? 12 years? When I ruptured my bicep, and Winstrol has been linked to certain problems with collagen and stuff, and there are definitely claims and some data suggesting it could weaken collagen cross bridges inside of connective tissue. Well, that could be a major issue if you're overtraining, overreaching too much, you're pushing too hard with too much volume, not giving yourself recovery time. Yeah, that could be an issue. And the thing to remember there is that some anabolics help more than others with bone mineralization. Now, fortunately, he was on tren, which actually does seem to help with that, by the way. It does seem to help with actual bone density and bone mineralization, but others could decrease it. Anadrol would possibly help with it. Winstrol would not be useful for that at all. Winstrol could do the opposite. Winstrol by itself, if used by itself, could actually reduce bone mineralization in some cases. Again, it really depends on the situation, though. So the Winstrol, I think, though, is just, I don't know, that's one of those substances that I know way too many guys who've had a major injury while training on Winstrol, of all things. Myself included, this guy, the same thing. I always tell guys they need to stay away from that one. I am not a fan. But yeah, very aggressive drug stack. Assuming everything he's on is legitimate, 500 milligrams of tren every week. For me, that would be side effects a bit beyond what I could personally handle. I can't handle 500 milligrams of real tren a week. Never have been able to at any point in my life. The side effects of it are just simply too much for me to take. So more power to him, though. Basically 100 milligrams of Anadrol a day. That sounds like a lot, but it really isn't when you consider the nature of the substance. They prescribe more than that sometimes for actual medical issues for middle-aged men. But in the combination of the stack, that's what makes that aggressive, and throwing that Winnie in. Overall, we're talking about what? 1.55 grams of gear a week. Nothing in that stack being weak stuff either. Particularly with tren in the mix, I'd say that's a pretty aggressive stack. That is definitely more than YouTube Natty, that's for sure. So yeah, pretty aggressive stack. Older guy, 43 years old, gaining a lot of strength. Maybe putting too much workload on, yeah, that could be a problem. I see how that could happen. But that's the things that guys need to realize when we talk about some of this stuff and we talk about strength gains from the gear. You need to understand that's not just one rep max strength. That is even your 10 rep max strength, because you know what? The guy probably wasn't doing a 1 rep max. That can happen just as easily once you're fatigued and all those micro tears start in either connective tissue or bone. And even you're doing a heavy 10 rep set with a lot of workload, because you're going to get strong on 10 reps with exercises. And people say, well, I try to do this exercise to make the exercise more difficult. It puts more leverage. More leverage with a lighter weight still has just as much chance of breaking a bone or possibly ripping connective tissue. You're not reducing your chances of injury by making the leverages more difficult, because if you think about that in terms of leverage, you could be putting just as much stress on a bone or something as if you were doing a more traditional exercise. So that's not going to protect you from injury. That's something people need to remember with some of these things. That's not going to protect you from injury. And there is that fact that, again, when people get on gear, they tend to want to do just tons and tons of volume of training and extra stuff because that extra recovery ability kicks in, and guys just want to go super hard sometimes. And you know what? That extra recovery ability doesn't always include enough connective tissue, or in this case, bone recovery, for this to actually work. And I think most people could look at that and see how that could be a problem there, because if you're not getting enough bone mineralization to keep up with the extra work, or connective tissue recovery or connective tissue growth, you could very easily snap something. You could break a bone, you could damage connective tissue by doing just too much overall workload, even though you seem to be recovering from it. And that's why people need to really pay attention to these things. So it's particularly when drugs come into the mix. God, guys, you really can't play around like that. You need to pay attention to it. Look how many of these pro bodybuilders just get hurt over and over and over again. I mean, endless numbers of tears, rips, damage. I mean, this stuff happens. And you know what? The same thing can still happen even with drug-free lifters, because ultimately what people need to think about when they start doing large amounts of workload, you need to remember, people talk about micro tears in muscles, but they don't realize that your bones actually get micro tears and micro fractures in them as a result of lifting. How many of you knew that? Bet some of you did. I bet you a whole lot of people listening didn't know that. Your bones from lifting weights, and I'm talking about even your concentration curls. Think about it. Your concentration curls are going to put micro fractures even in your forearms, right? Because you're doing it over and over. Even I'm using a 25-pound dumbbell. Well, if a 25-pound dumbbell is heavy for you, think about that leverage on that full arm. You're still putting a lot of stress over and over on that bone. You are causing micro fractures in it. Little cracks all through the bone. Usually, if you get enough recovery time and you don't make the workload so excessive that those fractures get so big that your body can't heal them quick enough, what ends up happening, your body heals those micro fractures. And do you know what it does with that? It makes them stronger, because your body responds to those little fractures and says, holy shit, this bone's going to break. What is this guy doing to me? He keeps, I'm getting hit with all this weight and workload, and it's cracking my bones. Your body usually responds by saying, I better put more calcium and magnesium in that crack. I better tighten it up. I better make it harder. I better make it denser. And so you get improved bone density. And improved bone density makes your bones stronger. Lifting weights, particularly if you're on a good diet, you're getting sufficient calcium, magnesium, enough sunlight or vitamin D, enough rest, your bones actually get stronger from lifting weights. And I don't mean just from ultra heavy weight. Your bones get those microfractures even from lifting moderate weight. Doing 10 rep sets still improves bone density. 15 rep sets can still improve bone density. And that's a good thing. When you think about it, having bones that are harder to break is useful. I don't care what goal you train for. I don't care if you care just about aesthetics, or you're trying to get pussy, or you want to feel healthier, or you want to be a strength athlete. Having stronger bones is always useful to you. I don't care who you are, because that's less chance that your bones are going to break. You could get hit by a car walking down the street right now. If you could cut the chance in half of a bone breaking because your bones are twice as strong from lifting weights, that's a fantastic thing. I don't think anybody would disagree. Any of you. That's perfect. That's wonderful. Nobody wants broken bones. And any of us could get hit by a car tomorrow, today. It could happen. You could fall down some stairs. Having tougher bones is one of the beautiful side effects of proper training. Beautiful side effect, because it's free. It just comes free from the lifting weights. But those micro tears do need time to recover. Your body can only handle so much workload. It can only handle so much before they're a problem. And sometimes you guys notice that you feel bone pain sometimes when you've been training excessively, or you've been pushing way too hard in the gym. You'll have a bone hurt. Your forearm, that's a common one. That's what he broke. Maybe your shin. That's because those micro tears are getting to be a little excessive, micro fractures through those bones are getting a little excessive, and your body is noting the pain now, saying, hey, you need to back it down a notch. So a lot of times when you're thinking of it as like a forearm splint, sometimes from training, is your body warning you that that's the actual bone getting maybe a few too many of those little cracks in it, that it's just struggling to get them healed up fast enough. And if you give it a little bit of time, it will actually correct itself. That's the beautiful thing with those micro fractures in your bones from training. As long as you give your body enough recovery time in the nutrition, it will fix them and they will come back stronger. It will make that bone stronger as a result of it. But you have to give it time. I mean, recovery is everything, and it doesn't matter. It's not just muscle recovery. It's not just connective tissue recovery. It's stuff like your nervous system recovery, your bone recovery. These things all matter. There's a lot going on in your body as a result of training. And when you don't pay attention to those things and you don't give your body enough recovery and you push it too hard for too long with too much workload, or particularly doing things that put you at bad leverages, things that put joints at bad leverages, even bones at bad leverages, you can injure joints. You can injure bones. Listen to your body. Pay attention, guys. There's a reason we don't always go 100% all the time in the gym. It's not necessary for gains, and in many cases it's counterproductive, because when you get hurt, when you get injured, your gains stop completely. They go the other direction. You lose gains. Was it worth it? Never worth it. Because if you can keep making slow progress without any injuries, you're eventually going to get there. Train smarter, guys. I'm not saying don't train hard, but train smart, and don't train hard with stupidity. Focus where you put those efforts. Apply that effort intelligently and with intent and with thought about, when am I going to recover from this? How am I going to recover from what I'm subjecting myself to? And sometimes you got to pace those things. Because, yeah, this person gave a perfect example. Did the steroids probably create a large contributing factor? Yeah, absolutely. But does this sort of thing still happen to naturals sometimes? Yes, it absolutely does. It's just a higher chance of happening when you're on drugs. And I think most of us could look at that and figure out why. He got a hell of a lot stronger. I mean, Tren and Anadrol make you strong. All right, no doubt about it. Anyone who's used either of these or used them in combination knows that that's the case. You get strong as fuck. But that can come at a price, and you've got to learn to watch that workload. You've got to watch how much work you're putting in. When that strength and stuff starts going up, it's not always about, oh, just your 1 rep max. You're going to start finding sometimes that your 10 rep set workloads, set after set, start adding up to a lot of tonnage. And sometimes that tonnage you're putting in with that extra burst of performance you're getting in the gym can push you over that edge and can push you towards an overuse injury. And that's exactly what something like this is. It's an overuse injury. Too many microfractures in the bone without enough recovery time, and then they got hit with a heavy load on a day when they just were not recovered enough, and shit snaps. Is what it is. Again, lesson learned to this fella. Hopefully, he adjusts what he's doing, and I hope he has a good recovery. He seems like he's going to have a good recovery. His doctor's hopeful. Things are going good, and I appreciate you sharing that story with me, because it gave me a great video topic for everyone. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.